karma do when your ex left you for a 10 and turned out to be a 0? Story 1. My ex left me after 5 years together. No warning, no big fight. Just came home one day and said he'd met someone who looked like a model and that he deserved better. She was a tall, Instagram-famous fitness influencer. I was devastated. She had over 100,000 followers, did fashion hauls, and seemed perfect. Fast forward 8 months. I hadn't heard from him, but mutual friends filled me in. Apparently, she was incredibly high maintenance, rude to his family, and constantly flirted with other guys, even in front of him. The final straw? She used his credit card to book a luxury vacation for her and her actual boyfriend. Yep, she was cheating the whole time. He messaged me on Facebook saying he missed what we had and should have appreciated real love. I left him on red. Karma didn't even have to try that hard. Story 2. Back in college, my boyfriend dumped me during finals week. His reason? He started seeing a girl who looked like a goddess. His words, not mine. He actually said, "She's a 10. You're like an 8 with a great personality." Well, this 10 turned out to be a nightmare. She was jealous, controlling, and threatened to slash his tires if he talked to any girl. He couldn't study, couldn't hang out with friends, and started failing classes. Within 6 months, she'd broken his phone twice, keyed his car, and caused multiple public scenes. I, on the other hand, graduated with honors, landed a solid job, and started dating a kind, successful guy. I ran into my ex a year later. He looked exhausted and mumbled, "You win, karma, baby." Story 3. He broke up with me right after our engagement photos, claiming he couldn't stop thinking about someone else. That someone was a glamorous bartender with a massive online following and a reputation for dating athletes and DJs. I was heartbroken and embarrassed. They moved in together quickly. Less than 3 months in, she'd maxed out his credit cards, refused to work, and constantly picked fights. She told him she was too pretty for bills. Eventually, she cleaned out his savings and left him for his boss at his own job. Meanwhile, I started a small art business that exploded on social media. I met someone supportive and gentle. 2 years later, I was engaged again, this time to someone who didn't have wandering eyes. My ex messaged me, drunk and bitter, asking for a second chance. I just replied, "I'm busy being happy." Story 4. I dated my ex for 3 years. I helped him through college, paid part of his rent, even cooked every night. Then one day, he tells me he's met someone way hotter at his gym. She was a fitness model, or so he claimed. Turns out, she was using him to promote her OnlyFans. She had no interest in him beyond his money and his apartment. Within a few months, she moved in, quit her job, and started posting suggestive content from his living room. He found out she'd been seeing multiple guys behind his back. He begged me to talk. I told him, "You left a ride or die for a thirst trap. Enjoy." Then I blocked him and never looked back. Karma did her job well. Story 5. When my ex left me, he didn't just break my heart. He humiliated me. He told our entire friend group that he was upgrading to someone young, wild, and smoking hot. She was 19. He was 28. I was 27. Within a year, she wrecked his car, trashed his apartment after a fight, and shared private texts online for clout. She even made a YouTube video dragging him for being broke and boring. His reputation was in ruins. Meanwhile, I got promoted, bought my first home, and met someone who treated me like gold. Karma didn't just bite. She chewed him up and spit him out. And I didn't have to lift a finger. Story 6. My ex-girlfriend dumped me during our anniversary dinner. Literally handed me the bill, stood up in front of everyone and said, "I've outgrown you." I've met someone who actually turns heads. He was a popular local DJ with abs, tattoos, and a massive ego. She moved in with him within a week. A month later, I started getting random calls from her number. Butt dials that revealed shouting, things breaking, and once, him calling her crazy. I ignored them all. Turns out the DJ she ran away with had a party addiction. Cocaine, raves, and sleeping around. She caught an STI, got into debt because she was covering his habits, and even lost her job due to showing up late too often. I, meanwhile, focused on myself. Lost weight, got promoted, and moved into a high-rise apartment. One day, she showed up at my office claiming she was in the neighborhood. She looked tired, broken, like life had chewed her up. She asked me out for coffee. I just smiled and said, "Sorry, I don't date other people's leftovers." Karma didn't whisper. She shouted. Story 7. After nearly 4 years together, my ex told me he was tired of vanilla. His exact words. He met some exotic dancer at his cousin's bachelor party and was instantly obsessed. He said she made him feel alive. I cried for weeks. They started dating right away. She was gorgeous, sure. the kind of woman who could turn heads in every room. But she also had a long trail of angry exes, unpaid bills, and a suspended license. Within 3 months, she had crashed his car, borrowed money she never returned, and accidentally posted a photo of herself kissing another man. My ex? He was broke, heartbroken, and humiliated. Me? I leaned into therapy, started hiking, and met someone at a trail cleanup event. That man is now my fiancé, gentle, funny, loyal. One day, my ex messaged me a long apology, blaming bad decisions and confusing times. I didn't respond. Why? Because healing tasted better than revenge. Story 8. My high school sweetheart left me right after our 10th anniversary. We were planning to start a family. He said, "I can't live a boring suburban life. I need excitement." He met a fashion blogger at a conference. Younger, glamorous, constantly posting her perfect life. He became her photographer, assistant, driver, and ATM. She dragged him to expensive brunches, luxury photo shoots, and influencer meetups. She even told people he was her manager, not her boyfriend. Behind the scenes, she was rude, demanding, and flirty with every guy with a blue check. Eventually, he caught her cheating on him. Not once, but 3 times, and with a different guy each time. She dumped him publicly, then made a TikTok about freeing herself from toxic energy. Thousands of likes. He deleted all his social media. I never gloated. I just kept building my interior design business, bought a house, and eventually met someone who respected my quiet life. Karma didn't just catch up to him. It brought receipts. Story 9. He left me after I beat cancer. Said he couldn't handle the stress, and that he found someone who made him feel young again. She was a 22-year-old bartender he met while I was still bald from chemo. I was 30. They moved in together quickly. But she wasn't interested in real life. Only parties, attention, and money. She quit every job she got. He ended up working double shifts to pay for her car, hair extensions, and club nights. One night she went out and just didn't come home. Left a note that said, "I'm not ready to settle for less." He called me crying, saying he missed how I loved him unconditionally. I told him, "You left when I had nothing. Don't come back now that I've rebuilt." Today, I'm healthy, remarried, and at peace. Karma didn't just return, it demanded interest. Story 10. She dumped me on Christmas morning. Said she didn't want to waste another year settling for average. I was a public school teacher, not rich, not flashy. She'd reconnected with an old college flame, a startup founder with a Porsche and flashy watch collection. She posted their relationship all over social media. Luxury vacations, rooftop dinners, couples yoga. Meanwhile, I spent the next year in silence, grieving and rebuilding. Focused on my students, started tutoring on the side, paid off debt. Then came the crash. His startup folded after an investor scandal. He was indicted. The FBI seized assets. She had to go back to her parents' house. No job, no money, no Porsche. She started selling her designer bags online. I got a message on LinkedIn. "Hey, just wanted to catch up. Miss our talks." I never opened it. Today, I'm principal at my school, engaged to a woman who values character over clout. Karma didn't need my help. It handled everything. Story 11. My ex and I were together during med school. I supported her emotionally through sleepless nights, clinical anxiety, and 2 failed board exams. I was in software, already working and helping out with rent. One day she sits me down and says, "You're sweet, but I don't see myself marrying someone average." I was stunned. She had started seeing a surgical resident. Tall, confident, and cocky. "He's going places," she said. I guess I wasn't. Fast forward 3 years. I'd quietly co-founded a health tech startup. We landed a government contract and scaled rapidly. Meanwhile, the hotshot surgeon she left me for, fired for falsifying case reports, lost his license. She had to move back home, thousands in debt, reputation bruised. She messaged me after seeing me on a podcast panel, asking if I remembered the little people. I replied, "Of course. I just don't let them back in." Blocked. Story 12. I was married for 8 years. We built everything together, home, routines, even a shared garden we both loved. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, he sat me down and said he felt trapped in routine and wanted passion. He left me for a fiery, impulsive woman he'd met at a salsa class. She was all glam, fast cars, and whirlwind vacations. She moved into our house within a month. I moved out, grieving quietly, mourning not just him, but the life I'd built. About a year later, I heard from a mutual friend. She had emptied the joint account, pawned some of his late father's antiques, and disappeared with a man she met on a cruise. No forwarding address. I, on the other hand, found peace in a slower life. I opened a flower shop, started painting again, and fell in love with a quiet, bookish man who adored me without conditions. Karma doesn't always shout. Sometimes, she whispers through the rustling of leaves in your own garden, the one you get to enjoy alone. Story 13. In college, I was a theater nerd. My ex was a football player, the star of campus. He kept me a secret at first, then eventually let me hang out with his friends, but only in sweats and no makeup. One day he said, "I met a girl who looks like Margot Robbie. I need to explore that." That 10 he left me for? She was stunning, yes, but also ruthless. He started skipping practice to be with her. Then he stopped studying. Then she cheated on him with a guy from a rival team and posted it on her Snapchat with the caption, "Upgrade unlocked." He lost his spot on the team. No degree, no draft. Meanwhile, I graduated with honors, landed a Broadway tour role, and eventually moved to LA to write for television. Years later, he messaged me. "I saw you on Netflix. Proud of you." I didn't reply. Karma gave me the spotlight and him the audience seat. Story 14. She and I ran a small business together, artisan jewelry. We were a couple and co-founders. Things were rough during the pandemic, but I believed in her. Then one day she ghosted me, vanished. I later found out she'd run off with a wealthy customer from Dubai who promised to take her brand global. I was shattered. She took our designs and portfolio with her. But Karma had a plan. The new guy trademarked her name under his brand and essentially cut her out. No ownership, no credit. Just a pretty face in a campaign. Meanwhile, I relaunched under a new brand. It went viral on Etsy. A major retail chain picked it up. I now run a 10-person team and mentor young creators. She messaged me from a burner Instagram account, asking if I'd ever consider reuniting creatively. I simply replied, "Create your own karma," then blocked. Story 15. He and I were together through law school. We were both broke but driven. Then I gained weight during bar prep and got diagnosed with PCOS. He slowly started pulling away. One day he said, "I need someone who takes care of herself." I found out later he was already seeing a 10, a fitness model who called herself a body coach. They got engaged 6 months later. Her Instagram was full of perfect angles, salads, and expensive wine. Meanwhile, I passed the bar and took a job at a public interest firm. A year later, I found out she'd been forging fitness certifications and had defrauded several clients. She was sued. He lost his job after being named in one of the legal claims. They used his address. Public scandal. She fled to Bali. He stayed behind, disgraced. I, on the other hand, was honored at a legal aid banquet, wearing a red dress that made me feel powerful. Karma didn't just return. She made me glow in the courtroom spotlight. Story 16. I dated my ex during grad school. I was studying environmental science. She was in marketing. I was quiet, bookish. She was social and image-conscious. One day, she said she couldn't picture a future with someone who wears thrift store shoes, her words. She dumped me for a wealthy vegan influencer who drove a Tesla and posted smoothie bowls and shirtless meditation selfies. "He's a spiritual 10, she said. I was crushed. They became a power couple, at least online. But it turned out he was more con than conscious. His eco-startup was a pyramid scheme. When the FTC got involved, she tried to distance herself, but screenshots of her promoting the product were already viral. Brands dropped her. Meanwhile, I helped write a white paper on renewable tech that landed me a role at a global nonprofit. A few years later, I gave a TEDx talk. She emailed, "I miss your calm. You always made life feel grounded." I didn't reply. Karma recycled that relationship. Story 17. I was a chef. My ex was a hostess at the restaurant I worked at. We clicked immediately, shared dreams of owning a place together. She helped me brainstorm menus. Then, one night, she said she met a Michelin star type guy, a rich customer who tipped in hundreds and drove a Lamborghini. She quit and moved in with him within a week. I stayed behind, heartbroken but focused. 2 years later, I had opened my own food truck. Tiny, humble, but local famous. I was featured on a foodie vlog, got invited to a culinary event. Guess who was working at the valet stand in uniform? Yep, her. Turns out Lamborghini guy cheated, kicked her out, and left her with a closet full of designer clothes she couldn't resell. She looked stunned when she saw the event banner with my face on it. I just nodded and walked past her, toward my table of curated guests, awards, and a line out the door. Story 18. We were both teachers. He taught history, I taught English. We shared lesson plans, rides to work, even wrote a children's book together. Then, out of nowhere, he left me for the hot new substitute. Blonde, bubbly, 10 years younger. They flaunted their relationship at school events. She wore heels and crop tops to parent-teacher conferences. He said I was too serious, and she made him feel alive. By spring break, rumors were flying. She was caught kissing a senior at prom. Parents reported her. The board investigated. She vanished, and he was put on unpaid leave for covering up her behavior. Meanwhile, I was promoted to head of the English department and had my first novel published by a small press. He sent me a message with just 3 words. You were right. No. Karma was... Story 19. My ex left me after we bought a house together. Yes, after. He met someone on a cruise while I was home organizing our mortgage paperwork. She was a dancer on the ship. Tall, flexible, foreign, and wild. He said she made him feel spontaneous again. He signed his share of the house over to me for freedom and left to travel with her. Less than a year later, he was broke, alone, and stuck in Belize after she drained his savings and ditched him for a yacht owner. He had to call his parents for help getting home. Meanwhile, I turned our house into a profitable Airbnb. I eventually sold it for double the value, used the money to start my own real estate business. When he returned and saw my listings on social media, he messaged me. Do you ever miss me? I said, I did, for about 5 minutes. Then I realized I missed peace more. Story 20. He was a struggling musician, and I was a bartender supporting us both. I believed in his dream, paid for his studio time, promoted his shows, even helped design his merch. Then, after a small record label showed interest, he told me I wasn't the image he needed anymore. He left me for a model/singer who had a massive following and a recording contract. I cried for weeks, deleted every playlist we ever made. Turns out, she tanked his image. She got caught lip-syncing, and her relationship with him was staged for promo. Once her label dropped him, she blocked him on everything. No gigs, no fans, just a SoundCloud page with 15 plays. I now own a cozy bar with weekly acoustic nights. Real talent, real stories. Last I heard, he was asking to play at local dives for free drinks. I never stopped him, but I never booked him either. Story 21. We were engaged, planning a wedding. She left me 2 months before the date, after the invites were printed, to be with a guy she met at her bachelorette party. A tall, sculpted bartender/model who told her she was too beautiful to settle down. She called off the wedding via text. Said she owed it to herself to see what else was out there. They flew to Tulum, then Europe. She posted photos of champagne and sunsets while I canceled deposits and returned gifts. I was gutted. 2 years later, I ran into her mom at the grocery store. She told me the guy left her daughter stranded in Spain after draining her bank account. He ghosted her, blocked her, and left her with 300 euros and a broken phone. She had to call home from a hostel. Meanwhile, I had started dating again. Someone stable, kind, and exactly the kind of boring she once mocked. We married last fall. I sent her an invite out of pure pettiness. She declined, obviously. Karma RSVP'd in her place. Story 22. We were a queer couple in a small town, and I thought we were solid. But after we graduated, she dumped me, saying she'd finally found someone with real ambition. That someone was a tech influencer she met at a conference. High-rise apartment, designer clothes, TEDx speaker. She mocked me for staying local and working at a nonprofit. Told me, "You're sweet, but I want to be iconic." Within a year, the influencer was exposed for faking credentials. Someone leaked emails showing they bought social media followers and plagiarized half their TED Talk. Career gone. They spiraled hard. Public breakdown on Twitter. My ex, caught in the mess, her name attached to their drama, and completely ghosted when the influencer nuked their accounts. Meanwhile, I was promoted to director at my nonprofit, featured in a national campaign, and quietly became the kind of person who didn't need to be iconic, just kind and consistent. Karma didn't care about aesthetics. She cared about authenticity. Story 23. I was a barista. She was a business school grad who always said I had potential but not drive. When she landed a job at a fancy consulting firm, she told me she wanted someone more motivated, and started seeing a slick coworker who wore $400 shoes and called me that poetry guy. I let her go. Didn't argue. Turns out that coworker got caught embezzling from client accounts. Lost his job, reputation, and visa. She was questioned too. Turns out she'd used one of the stolen cards for a Paris trip. I, on the other hand, kept writing poetry. And one of my poems went viral on TikTok. Got a book deal. Started speaking at events. Now I make more with my words than she did with her MBA. She DM'd me after seeing me on a podcast. I always knew you'd make it, I replied with a single line from the poem she once rolled her eyes at. Some flowers bloom after you stop watering the wrong soil. Story 24. We were best friends before we dated. 10 years of shared history. I thought we were forever. Then he said he needed someone who made life exciting. Apparently that meant a 35-year-old Instagram model with a blue checkmark and a skincare brand. He unfollowed me, blocked me, erased everything. 6 months later, the model got caught in a major influencer scandal. Fake product reviews, photoshopped endorsements, and DMs with multiple married men. She nuked her account, denied everything, then vanished. He was left with debt, embarrassment, and a tattoo of her name on his chest. Me? I kept my circle tight, focused on my candle business. It went viral during the holidays. A single TikTok changed everything. I launched a storefront, hired a team, and built something real. One day, he walked into my shop, said, "It smells like the home I used to have." I smiled and said, "That's because it is. You just don't live here anymore." Story 25. He told me he didn't see a future with someone who worked at a library. He said I was too quiet, too plain, and too comfortable. I was devastated. He left me for a loud, glamorous girl who worked in nightlife. She wore stilettos to the grocery store and called everyone babe. They partied nonstop, bragged about it all over social media. Then things got messy, fast. She was arrested for a bar fight, went live on Instagram crying, and accused him of ruining her brand. He lost his job after showing up late too many times. Meanwhile, I had gone back to school, earned my master's in archival science, and landed a job at a historical museum. I didn't post much, but when my exhibit was featured in a national magazine, I got a DM from him. "I missed the piece you brought." I didn't answer. I just posted a photo of the museum's reading room with a caption that read, "Silence is golden. So is closure." Story 26. He was a firefighter, and I was a veterinary nurse. We'd been dating for over 3 years. One night, after a fundraiser gala, he sat me down and said he had met someone more aligned with his lifestyle, a former pageant queen turned fitness coach. "She looks like she belongs on my arm," he said. He left me the next week, took her to the department ball. She posted about manifesting alpha energy and called herself Mrs. First Responder in her captions. A few months later, she was caught faking a GoFundMe for a sick dog that didn't exist. The story blew up. Local news, Reddit threads, angry followers. His firehouse distanced themselves fast. She dragged him into the chaos, accusing him of helping, which nearly cost him his job. Meanwhile, I was featured in a veterinary journal for my work with rescued pit bulls. Got offered a grant to open my own mobile clinic. I ran into him at the grocery store. He tried to explain. I just said, "Hope you enjoy the spotlight. Sometimes it burns." Story 27. We were both tattoo artists. Ran a small shop together. I handled the bookings, managed clients, and built our social media. He handled the ego. Then one day he tells me he's leaving, both me and the business, to start a high-end brand with this model/influencer who had 3 million followers. "She'll put us on the map," he said. Correction. Him, not us. Turns out she had no actual interest in tattoos. She used him to design a logo for her fake fashion line, took half his equipment to style a shoot, then ghosted him the day after her brand launch. And her brand? Total scam. Clients never got their orders. Lawsuits followed. I renamed the shop, revamped the space, and went viral on TikTok with my minimalist animal designs. Booked out 6 months in advance. He showed up one day asking if I needed an extra hand. I told him I only hire professionals who don't mistake ambition for betrayal. Story 28. He was a coder. I was a baker. He used to joke that we were beauty in the back end. I thought it was cute until he said he needed someone who actually fit the startup scene. Apparently that meant a UX designer who looked like a runway model and did yoga on the office rooftop. He ghosted me after taking 2 of my cinnamon rolls to give to her. They lasted 5 months. She dumped him after his startup lost funding and her new flame got hired at Google. Then she blocked him and accused him of being emotionally unavailable on Twitter, where his investors saw it. Meanwhile, I partnered with a local cafe, turned my baking into a subscription box, and ended up on a cooking show as a guest judge. I mailed him one of my limited edition cupcakes, with a sticky note that read, "Sometimes sweet things rise after you leave them out." Story 29. She and I were neighbors growing up. Friends since kindergarten. We started dating after college. Natural, steady, safe. Then, after 4 years, she told me she craved chaos. Said she felt like she was missing out on wild love. She met a guy at a concert. Tattoos, motorcycles, sang in a grunge band. He called me domesticated to my face. She laughed. They moved to the West Coast together. Less than a year later, she called me crying from a bus station. He had pawned her guitar for drug money, crashed his bike while drunk, and skipped town with a groupie. She was stranded. I sent her enough money to get home, then never replied again. Now I live quietly with someone who builds furniture and reads poetry to me in bed. My life may be boring to some, but I don't crave chaos anymore. I crave peace. Karma brought it once I cleared the noise. Story 30. We were high school sweethearts who stayed together into our late 20s. He was my first everything. I thought we were planning a future. Then, at a wedding, he danced all night with one of the bridesmaids and ghosted me the next day. I later found out they'd been talking for months. She was a fashion student in New York who called herself a solid 11. They got together fast. He moved across the country for her. She dumped him 2 months later because he lacked edge, then posted a TikTok ranking her exes like a reality show. He was dead last, with the caption, "Sweet but spineless." It got 300,000 likes. I watched it while sitting at my own wedding rehearsal. To a man who took years to win my trust, and never once made me feel like second choice. Karma didn't punish him. She just upgraded me. Story 31. He broke up with me at a funeral. We were in the parking lot after his aunt's service. He turned to me and said, "Life's short. I need to chase what excites me." Apparently, that excitement was a girl he met at a karaoke bar who did burlesque and had pink hair and a pet snake. I drove home alone, mascara streaked down my cheeks. He moved in with her a week later. Their relationship was chaotic. Daily Instagram lives, cryptic tweets, public fights at clubs. Eventually, she dumped him during one of those live streams, kicked him out while viewers egged her on in the comments. He tried to return to the quiet life, messaged me that he missed the peace. I didn't answer. By then, I'd become a certified grief counselor. Helping others gave me purpose. I bought a tiny home in the mountains and started hiking. One day, I saw he followed my new account. My bio said, "Healed people don't look back." That's all the closure I needed. Story 32. We were both broke college students when we started dating. I worked 3 part-time jobs while studying nursing. He was trying to make it as a rapper. 0 income, big dreams. I supported him, even paid for studio time once. Then, after one of his songs hit 10,000 plays on SoundCloud, he told me he had to level up, said I didn't match his brand, left me for a bottle girl with a massive Instagram following who had model energy. 6 months later, his model got pregnant. He posted photos of their power couple journey. I stayed quiet. Then she went on vacation with her ex, dumped him over text and claimed the baby wasn't his. He lost his mind online, ranting, crying, oversharing. His label offer got pulled. Meanwhile, I passed my boards, bought a used car and got a job at a pediatric hospital. One of my coworkers showed me his breakdown video asking, "Didn't you date this guy?" I just smiled and kept charting vitals. Story 33. He was my first real boyfriend, a high school romance that bled into our early 20s. I thought we were building a life. Then he cheated on me with his boss. She was older, successful, and intimidating. He said she understood him intellectually in ways I didn't. They got together publicly, like nothing happened. I was humiliated. A year later, she fired him. Apparently, he had lied on his resume and used company funds to buy her gifts. She dumped him immediately. His name got passed around in HR groups and he struggled to find a job. Meanwhile, I went back to school, earned a master's in public health, and joined a research project abroad. One day, I got a LinkedIn request from him. The message said, "You were always too good for me." I didn't block him. I let him sit there, unread. Sometimes karma is quiet, like a door that doesn't open again. Story 34. I worked in a library. He was a DJ. He said we balanced each other. I was grounded. He was wild. But eventually, he told me he wanted someone who fit his vibe. I came home to find a note on the fridge and a photo of him and his new girlfriend at Burning Man. She was beautiful, covered in glitter and henna. She called herself an empathic alchemist and made music with crystals. They traveled together for a while, then tried to launch a conscious rave brand. It flopped. She left him to date a crypto guy in Portugal. Last I heard, he was back living with his parents, selling vape pens at a mall kiosk. Me, I was promoted to head librarian, started a literacy program for underserved kids, and adopted a senior cat named Pickle. He once messaged me, asking if I still had his vintage record player. I told him, "It's in good hands, like I used to be." Story 35. She and I worked at the same architecture firm. We started dating during a late-night project. Coffee turned into dinners, then a relationship. Things were good, until a new senior designer transferred from the New York office. Tall, expensive watch, loud. 3 weeks later, she left me for him. He understands the pressure of deadlines, she said. I said nothing. Just kept my head down. 3 months in, their fling was out in the open. Then, suddenly, gone. He transferred again, this time to London, without telling her. She was humiliated, tried to return to how things were, but I'd already left the firm to join a sustainable design startup. The startup grew. We won awards. I became a speaker at industry events. One day, she showed up at one of my talks, sitting in the back. Afterwards, she approached me, said, "You always had the better vision." I smiled and replied, "Takes more than vision. It takes loyalty."